Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our Trends and Spends Remodeling Design presentation seminar. This is my partner in crime, Sharon Barzak. She's our lead designer. And what we want to do today is have a good discussion on, these type of topics. So I wanted to make sure I get some of yours questions down, but at the same time, I also wanted to show you what we have planned. Is there anything on this list that you don't think we should be talking about today? Something that's not interesting. I see heads nodding, yeah. So fairly relevant. Anybody want to talk a little bit about costs around remodeling projects? Okay, so that's pretty good. Anybody who wants to see a little bit about the trends and stuff we see in our world? Okay. And getting good value, I think I heard it over here. Just the planning process in general, kind of what decisions, when do they happen? And have you ever heard about phasing? Okay, so I want to talk about, in our world, we're firm believers of the master plan, meaning how do we take your home from point A to point B and do all the things that you want to do to it without having to undo and redo things. Sometimes you can't do all of that in one shot. You have to kind of plan it over time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to, our favorite with Sharon is when we go through and look at our before and after case studies. Real life examples, and we're going to look at a couple at least today where we help the family. One is a 1990s two-story, one is a 1960s Rambler in Edina, and just help you see the thought process of what happens with the goals and how that guides our process. So does that look like a good starting point? Okay. Awesome. Sharon and I, we're like a tag team, okay? We both, despite our young ages, we've been in the industry for some time. And I usually start when we go meet with folks, I usually say, I've been in your house hundreds of times, okay? Because I have. We've seen pretty much anything and everything under the sun, really good solutions, and then some questionable. And it's not like we're saying we know everything, but we're just saying we've done a thing or two. And our role with company New Spaces is to help you guys live better, find solutions within our home. We're a remodeling company. We're a design build firm, and that's what we do. So Sharon and I have a lot of fun going and meeting with folks like you because we start with understanding that there's some pain, and our job is to help you see the solutions and find good solutions for your home. I'm going to take a couple minutes here just on who we are as a builder, because you're going to see later on here, there's probably 17,000 licensed building contractors in the state of Minnesota. Yeah, we're proud of our work. So we've had a few design awards along the way, and one thing that makes us a little bit different than the majority of the companies out there in the design build spaces, we have our own lead carpenters on staff. So Ed, Ross, and Chad, they kind of move in with you for a little bit. They manage the project. They have between 30 plus and 10, 15 years of experience, each and every one of them. So they've seen a thing or two. And we also have the design arm of the business in-house. So we are a design build firm and second generation. Our president of the company, Sean Nelson, is also a Bloomington City Councilman. So very involved in the communities here in the Twin Cities, and Sean has also served as the BATSI, the Builders Association of the Twin Cities president. So we have a lot of industry volunteer leadership that we've been involved in. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about trends. Start there. I'm going to pull up a slide, and Sharon's going to talk a little bit about what she sees. So it's different things in terms of trends 2019, 2020 that we see out in the marketplace. And some of the stuff you're going to absolutely love, some of the stuff you're going to have questions on. So we're going to pull this up and see what comes out. All right. What do we see here? Black. Yeah? What else do we see? This is not the absolute best picture to see contrast, but here you see a very dark wide plank floor. lot of a lot of what we do. Just a quick note on that. So I want you to think about your house in the terms of how to make the new blend with the old. Most people are not intending or wanting to get into a thing, I'm going to change everything, replace everything. It's sometimes not practical from a budget standpoint. So a lot of our work and our design team's work is to how do we blend new with old. So you don't have this feeling like you're coming into a home and you go like, oh, what happened here? I'm in the 1950s, now I'm in the 2000s. The skill that comes to be able to methodically put things together and change the design so that you have a pleasing, cohesive look without changing everything. That's a lot of times the challenge. But I'll answer, if you don't mind, the white thing. So white, in my mind, it's timeless, it's elegant, it's going to always be there. And you have a lot of color options with other items to bring color into things. And white's, it's a clean look. And we see it a lot. So you go to the parade of homes, and that's what you're going to see. The other thing, I want you to look at most of all the automobile commercials and things like that. You're going to see houses and furniture, and what's starting to happen is starting to lean a little bit more modern. Right? Am I right? You guys see that? Here's one example of having a window trim assembly where you actually have drywall returns into the window. You don't see the casing around the window that we see here in the Midwest. There's no casing, and this is a much cleaner look where it actually drywall goes right into the window and there's no wood around it. So things like that you're seeing, and what happens with trends really in our world is that so things happen in Europe, they come overseas, and then they land on the coasts, east and west coast. And where are we? In the middle. So things travel slower to our neck of the woods, and historically speaking, in Minnesota, we are fairly traditional. This is the country and this is the area where we hear a lot of times, I want ceiling height cabinetry, full height cabinetry, I want the soffits gone. I want you to think about that. That is all good, and that's one way to create a lot of storage. Ergonomically, access-wise, how we operate is right here, right? And right here, okay? I want you to think about not just looks, I want you to also think about how it is to really function. So I'm the chef of our house, and I know where my range is and what's easy to grab and have. So, but we do quite a bit. We get the request, I want ceiling height cabinetry, soffits to be gone. And the reality is guys, we have so much stuff. A part of when we go in and talk to folks, it's like, okay, let's start thinking about this. The 120 Tupperware containers. The 90 coffee cups, logos. They're like, really? Do we need all of that or not? So compact and how we think about storage. Smart storage a lot of times can eliminate the need for adding storage. You just got to think about what do we really need and design accordingly. The easiest thing in the world, in the design world, is to just have all this space available and just add things. The skill comes when you can look at how to make things better and keep it compact and not build massive, huge spaces for kitchens. You see, more compact. Efficiency, yeah.
So what do you do with that? How do you do that?
So, I mean, that's a good point. So whenever you have corners, you end up with the decision on how do you maximize that space that sits in the middle there. Lazy Susan's one of them, and then another one is to think of less corners as we design kitchens. That's another thing to just keep in mind. And with center islands, long banks, and center island, you end up with less of that, rather than building peninsula and U-kitchens. But guys, you know what? We could take a week on the conversation on that. So we're gonna move along a little bit, and happy to meet with you guys after. We're at booth number 4142. Sharon and I will be there. So want to talk about, as human beings, what happens. A lot of times we come into contact with folks and they have really things that are sentimental in value. They've collected things, furniture pieces, sports memorabilia, all kinds of things. And the key is, a lot of times for us, is that we have to make a plan around certain things that are important to our clients. And that may sound and look like something like this. So we meet with Sharon and the homeowner, and they have this table or they have this piece of wall material that they want to for sure incorporate. They say, here's our stuff. Now I want that incorporated in the plan. This is really important to some people, and to some people it's a non-issue. But what we do is that we go very intimately into your thought process of how you want to live, what you want to see, the things that make you happy, and we incorporate. Sometimes we build a space plan around the rosewood credenza or the buffet that's been in the family for a long time. And we make decisions from a spatial plan based on that. So get the things that you love and have them close to you, and have those incorporated in the design. That's a good way to look at it. Anybody who likes light in this room? We're human beings. It's really important, lighting and how you plan the lighting plan. I would tell you, for the ones of you that live in the 50s homes, for instance, if you're lucky, you have one ceiling fixture in the middle of the room somewhere. And the rest is all arranged via lamps around the perimeter. As we age, and as we just want to live and do our thing, we want good lighting so that we can do the things we want to do. That's a huge decision on Sharon's table when we go to make decisions with homeowners. How do we accommodate for adequate task lighting, ambiance lighting, and make sure that everything works? As we grow older too, we sometimes need a little help with more lighting. I'm a certified aging in place specialist too, so that's one of my superpowers. I help you think about how to mature and age in your home. Big scale, large scale lighting pieces. It's what we also call like the jewelry. It's a way for you to express your own style. And here's a few examples of pretty powerful lighting arrangements. How about materials? Somebody asked here about bathroom materials. Who likes maintenance in the room? Huge maintenance fans. Yeah. So the big leaning we see is that all of the innovation and product development goes towards less and less maintenance. There is no such thing as no maintenance, but I want you to think low maintenance. So here are a few things that we see. One big thing, if you run to and you go to the parade of homes a lot, you will see a flooring material called luxury vinyl tile or luxury vinyl plank. It's a vinyl material that either looks like a tile, and you can grout it or not, and this here is a vinyl plank, so it looks like wood. And we see these in million-plus homes. It's a really well-performing flooring material. It's waterproof, extremely scratch-resistant, not as clunky, and it performs really well over time. I mean, what would you say, Sharon? LVP, LVT goes into 9 out of 8, 9 of our projects that we do.
Yes, to some degree.
Yeah. Quartz countertops, really popular right now. And somebody here said less grout. So large-scale shower panels or sheets of stone, for instance. So less grout lines, less of grout cleaning, and less issues for water and moisture intrusion into the wall cavity too. Easier to clean.
How about cement?
Huh?
How about cement? Is that in? Countertops?
Cement countertops, so concrete countertops. Yeah, I mean, I think that too, and I'll let Sharon speak more on that, but concrete countertops are also, we saw them come on around 2005, 2006, and the staining of it, the sealing of it, they look more industrial, they were leaning more modern. All of those things were statement pieces. I personally am not a huge fan, just because it's just me. And to your point on that, you see that a lot in commercial kitchens. It has an industrial look to it. And so I'm born and raised in Helsinki, Finland. In the Nordic countries, we see stainless steel quite a bit in the kitchen as a countertop material. It comes from the Nordics in terms of being super practical, and it's easy to wipe down, easy to maintain. Good, and then we brought up one thing here about porous. So when you think countertops, I want you to think about, you got the granites, stone, marble, you got the quartz, there's even ceramics, and they all do different things really well. Some are non-porous, so that you can go ahead and basically put all the red wine you want on it and leave it there and nothing's going to happen. Ceramic's one of them. You want to think about how they take heat and cold, temperature variations. So the stones have a tendency to have a thermal shock if you put something really hot or on them, and they make crack. So those are things to think about too. And butcher blocks, wood product, has been coming on fairly strong too. Gray is still the new white, right? Has anybody here heard about gray being somewhat trendy? Yeah? Yeah. There's gray everywhere. What was that?
I think it has been for a while.
It has. So it's about 7 years into the trend that's typically 10 or so years is trends to move through the, no. But they look a little differently. They may not be bright brass and have the little wood flappers. and lower profile, so they're not as clunky. But it's a great way to move air around, provide a little better air movement. And you want to obviously make sure that they're not in areas where you can, that's not where you want to set up your trampoline. You want to just kind of stay out of that. Here's some of the 2019-2020 colors by Sherwin-Williams, and some of you may think, oh my gosh, that's pretty energetic. Some may like this, but again, the color trends come and go, and you see them you see them mostly on the parades and things like that, where people want to showcase. Some of you may love those. Some of you may never want to ever think about use that in your house. It's your own home. Do what you love, not what the trends are telling you. Good. Okay. Let's. We talked a little bit about countertops. So, marble look versus the marble kind of performance. So, marble is a great material. It's been around for a long time. But marble is porous, and it also scratches very easily. So if you're offended to the scratching of a countertop and that's not what you like, then you should not do marble. Because marble, if you look at it, it will scratch. So, what do you guys think of the waterfall feature? You must have seen that. Some of you have looked at so when it actually comes down over here, and you actually see the veining is connected, so it's cut from the same slab. People like that? Yeah. Pretty sharp look. 50s and 60s properties here on the west side, we see a lot of mid-century modern inspired, large geometric shapes, whites, clean lines, a little bit more modern in nature, and a lot of times too, what I mentioned, the drywall returns and no casings. No wood around the window, just drywall returns. These are things we see with Sharon. Okay. We're going to talk about spends. Now we're to the point we're going to talk a little bit about kitchens. What you see there is 3 distinct kind of ranges, if you will. One is for an update, one is for a remodel, and one is for expansion and relocation. So I want you to think about a light update. Somebody here said cosmetic, countertop, backsplash, lighting, using existing cabinetry, maybe painting them, maybe a new sink, maybe a new faucet. Usually those are the areas, and depending on what we do with the floor and the ceiling, but usually the light updates you will see in that range. Can it be less? Yes. It's all about how much do we do. Can a light update be more than that if it's a ginormous kitchen, mudroom, all of these things, I mean, connected. The remodel part, I want you to think about when we start removing all the old stuff. So all cabinetry goes, all countertops goes, flooring, wall, ceiling, system. When we start having even partial wall removal, Usually we are talking about moving electrical around. Sometimes we move HVAC, supply or return registers. Then it starts to get from the 60s, and it can go all the way up to 6 figures. And then once we start to expand and relocate, so when we get into a kitchen main level project where you have a kitchen, so in the 50s, let's take a tuck under or a split. I walk up, I have my living room to the front right there. I have the dining and kitchen living in the middle, and then I have all the sleeping areas to the right as I go up and then down to the basement. If we touch all of those areas and we get into railings, because there's a stairway, right? There might be a fireplace that we want to put a gas insert into, remove the wood and just put an insert, because now we can actually utilize it and we don't have to trek the firewood in all the time. We get into the 6 figures, and how far depends on what all we do. All ceilings, all walls, all floors, railing systems, fireplaces. These are things that usually comprise that expand and relocate. And what we should have is there really should be a plus after all those, because it depends on how far you go. That's what we see here. Are two very different. Here's an update, and here's a remodel. And that's, you got something in the 30s, 40s, and you have something that's in the 50s, 60s to start with. I think this is an interesting one to look at, because this really illustrates that fairly quickly. This is a kitchen in the 50s, and that was a kitchen in the 90s. The difference is custom cabinetry, floors, walls, ceilings, countertops, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, electrical solutions, lighting. All of these things, it's a similar in size. So on this side, there's still cabinetry on this wall here. But just to give you an idea, that almost double depending on the things we choose. Custom cabinetry wrapping around, and this is a box cabinetry line. Budget countertop. That's a good illustration just to see in our world how things really, every decision in design or every line that Sharon draws has some impact in space and in economics. Room additions, one of the toughest ones to kind of think about. Like in our world, we can't take room addition A or B off the shelf and say, there you go. We'd love to, but it doesn't work that way. Many different room additions, guys. So we're talking about a room addition on pier footings, so it's open underneath. We can talk about room additions over a crawl space, so it's a partial foundation underneath, maybe 3-4 feet, or full basement addition. And then we have one which is, and I think we'll see it here too, it's a cantilever addition. Do you know what I mean when I say that? That means that we're moving the first floor or second floor platform out, but we're not bearing down with posts or foundation, so it hangs out. And in a first floor platform, if we go out under your eave, so we stay under the roof line, a lot of times this is the most cost-effective, really efficient way of adding space and creating that additionally. In the kitchen, it's critical, sometimes 2 feet, because that puts a cabinetry bank of cabinetry over on the other side, and now you've just doubled the amount of cabinetry. But room additions, $350 to $550 a square foot, depending on the things I just mentioned. And here's a 70s house with a master suite built over and a garage addition added on, and it looks like it could have always been there, right? We've all seen, we've driven around in our community, sometimes we see, oh man, that's a room addition. That kind of sticks out, and then things you can never even really pick out. There's the garage addition, and there's the front to back master suite that was built up on the second floor. Here's one of my favorites. This is a nice start before, and then I'm going to go to the after slide. I want you to pay attention to that fireplace chimney. That's the only thing you're going to recognize. Boom. This is what a remodeling project looks like when you have 10 acres. You're in a place where you never want to leave from. They're going to take you out in the box. All your neighbors are there, and it sits among really high value properties. And this is what a 7-figure remodel can look like. So the spectrum's pretty wide on what we see and the goals that people have. We usually tell people with Sharon when we go meet with you, say anything is pretty much possible. The question is, does it make sense? And what's it going to take for us to get there? Lower levels. Okay. Anybody have a finished basement here? Or wants a finished basement? Okay. Think about this. So a lot of times in Minnesota, we have basements. It's a nice space to be used. Usually it's equal to your first floor footprint or so, minus the utility room. You can create really nice spaces down there. Even in homes that are 1920s, 30s, bungalows, 6'11" ceiling height, you can create a really nice, cozy area. This is what we see in order to just finish from scratch. $60 to $80 a square foot. And then, so just finish, that means framing, that means drywall, electrical, and heating and cooling. Then we want other things. Usually there's a basement, bathroom, maybe there's a bedroom, maybe there's a bar, a fireplace. And then some of you guys want the golden tea machine, the bubble hockey, and the walk-behind bar, and the wine cellar, and the audio-video home theater, all of that. So you see the wide spectrum there. Here's some numbers that you will see from an entertainment wall, which could be what you see over there, or it could be with the fireplace and the TV. And usually we end up somewhere in that $100 to $140 a square foot. But again, these are guides. Our line of work is not something, it's not like you can buy a vehicle price per pound. It just doesn't work that way. But gives you a guide to at least start the thinking process. Lower levels is actually one of the larger project types in our area that we're getting requests for. So it's a good way to add square footage within the existing footprint. All right. Bathrooms. We wanted to talk a little bit about that. And what is the first decision on a bathroom in terms of material? I want you to, rather than maybe think about it in terms of what's the first decision, is that what do you want out of that bathroom? Because that decision on what you're thinking of first is going to really be based on, we think about design as a funnel. I want you to think about program being on top. So that means, what does it have to have? If it has to have a shower and a tub and a toilet and a double vanity, is very different than just shower, toilet, single vanity, or pedestal. Because space plan is what we want you to think about first. What do you need it to do for you? Once that is clear, then we can start talking about the other stuff. Here's a few budget ranges that we see. And bathrooms, like kitchens, are the highest value projects that you do. Here's why it is so. I mean, people buy homes for 3 reasons. Location, kitchens, and bathrooms. They're super important. So when people come and look for a home, they go there because it's in a certain location. That's number one. And number two, do I like the kitchen? Do I like the bathroom? Full master bathroom. It's not uncommon that these can get into the 6 figures because there's so much to consider, and the range of cost of materials are great. To your point on what materials, working on a bathroom years ago, and the shower glass, which was a 4-foot section and a 3-foot section, that alone was a fire molded Bayou brought from Canada. That was a $10,000 decision. And it had one of the sides was smooth and the other one was textured. So it was an art piece. There's no other way to describe that. That's very different from a bifold shower door that does the same job in a 48-inch shower, and you have $500 for a really good shower door. So huge spectrum. But this is what we get into. And everybody's tastes, everybody's goals are a little bit different. And the space that we have available. So, any surprises here? Any reactions? I have two more of these mugs. I feel like we need to start waking you up. Do you have anything over there?
I always have lots of things.
Sure.
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut.
You are, huh? Don't try too hard.
I won't.
Okay. So, we got about 20 minutes left. I want to leave you with a few thoughts on this because, like we said, there's many, many, many people who do similar things in the building industry. What I want you to think about, the initial thoughts you need to have, you got to define the project, then you got to know what do all these different industry professionals do? What's their role? Here's one thing that is important to know. So if you have a property and it's built pre-1978, it's considered so-called target housing, which means that any contractor who works on that property has to be a lead certified renovator. Why? Pre-1978, we had a lot of lead in the building materials, in paints and things like this. And we need to have a specific lead-safe renovator who does the demolishing of that project, because lead is a hazardous material. That's one thing that you run into in these homes. The other thing is the A word. We're not going to say it. The A word that comes in, we sometimes find it in floor tiles. So if you go home today and you look at your floor tile and you see that it's got a 9-inch square, odds are that size leads us to believe we're in a asbestos tile. And that can all be tested. We take care of all of those things, make sure everything is safe, but just things to think about. I like this if you define the project, because you're at home, you're thinking about, what do I want to do? Does it involve changing the footprint? Does it involve removing walls? Does it have structural considerations? If the answer is yes to those, odds are you should be thinking about working with a design build remodeler, general contractor, or with an architect who works with all those. So general contractor is it's a licensed entity who's used to be able to command several trades and pull them together and run a cohesive effort. So they work with the plumbers, with the electricians, with the drywaller, the painter, the flooring guy. And they are a licensed contractor. So they are able to do that type of work. They have the insurance requirements in order, and they've fulfilled their licensing requirements. A design build remodeler is a company just like us. And that means that we actually design and we build it. So all of that is in-house. So cost estimating follows suit. When we estimate and design, we also have the production arm close. So all of that works together. If you work, the difference between an architect and a general contractor, an architect designs and then the builder would be estimating. Sometimes if you start discussions with an architect and you are then having the architect have the builder bid the plans, the same conversations are not being had. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. That can work well. I'm not saying at all a design bid build process is what, but sometimes really critical information does not transfer. And then we have the designers, kitchen designers, interior designers. That's what they do. They focus on design. What we do is a comprehensive, from the ideas to the actual estimating, to the design, to the execution, everything under the same roof. That means there's one responsible party. That's us. This here, I think, is important, and many of you are thinking about it. Does it impact resale value? Is it a very important? Like, is it a kitchen? Is it a bathroom? These are areas, there's a lot of infrastructure going on. There's a lot of complex things, a lot of systems. And that's different, for instance, than changing out deck rail or decking on an existing deck. That's an exterior specialty contractor who would be the best bet for that particular thing. You know what color, what decking you want, and the structure's in place, and it's a matter of removing the old and putting the new down. Not a huge need for getting the design absolutely nailed down. until you put down the wrong color and it's off and all of that. I mean, but short of that. Does this resonate with anybody? Is that something that you've been thinking about, giving you a couple things to think about? Okay. Yes.
With the design, you guys are design build.
Yeah.
So then you contract with all the subs.
So absolutely right. So we have our own trade partner that we've worked with for many, many years. And we have the actual framing, the trim, the lead carpenter in our own team.
And as far as the insurance, everything is tendered over to,
So it's all under our umbrella. So you have one responsible party.
so if there's a dispute between the parties,
Which parties?
let's say the general contractor
And
the design person.
so in our case, that's us. So the dispute,
It's one party, it's one contract and it's,
here's our dispute.
yes.
So we figure it out.
But what about if there's a dispute with one of your subcontractors?
So
How does the homeowner stay out?
okay, so the homeowner, that's a really good question, because if you are the person taking on the responsibility of vetting subcontractors, hiring them on your own, you are now effectively taking on the role of a general contractor. And I think you hit on something really important. I'm gonna take 1 minute. If you are not really well trained in evaluating scopes of work of all of the trades, here's the risk. If you get bids from different subcontractors, the understanding of where one responsibility starts and the other ends, and where there are scope gaps, because you need to be able to tie all of these pieces together seamlessly. And that is what we do, and that's what a general contractor does, is they work with their trusted trade partners that they have worked for. In a lot of ways, we've worked 15, 20 years. They know our system, they know how we work, they understand our documentation, which are plans, specifications, selections, okay? That's what we build off of, not napkin sketches. We have documentation. So when Sharon sets out to document selections, there's a model number, there's a color, there's a picture. It is exactly what you wanted. Exactly what you wanted, because you've looked at it, you picked it out together, because it works perfect in the design that she created. Good question. Those are things that typically don't always come up, but let's move on here. Here's a design build planning process. So here's Ron, right here. He's thinking about things. Then there's an initial consultation. That is when we spend some time understanding, what is your wish list? What does it look like? What does it consist of? Have you considered this? Are you open to suggestions? It's a brainstorming session where the best thoughts surface. And it is also a meeting where there's many questions being asked. And we take different avenues and consider different things, because we don't know what we don't know at this point. You've lived in the house for some time. We don't understand all the things you want to do, and we don't understand the why behind it. Many different ways to approach it. You can call 5, 6 people, and 4 of them will show up and say, what do you want? I'm going to write down exactly what you want, and then I'm going to just there's a price. Or you will have your questions challenged so that we fully understand if what you're trying to accomplish will be met with these things. So if you're open to suggestions, we've been at it. Like I said, we've been in your house hundreds of times. So we ask the question, okay, why? Because if we go to the why, we will understand what you need it to do. And there is more than one way to get you there. And all different solutions have a different design, a different impact on cost. And that discussion is extremely valuable. Some people think that I can't call anybody before I have everything figured out. No, please don't. Please invite us to that conversation, or a design build remodeler, and just tell them, in a perfect world, if you had it your way, here's what you would want. And let the expertise of that individual who's been doing it for 20, 30 years and seen 100 of those cases say, you know what, you want to maybe think about this. I don't know if this is right for you yet, We'll find out after we talk about it. So that consultation also establishes a budget range, investment range. We want to make sure, I have no doubt, Sharon's going to knock your socks off with the design of what we're going to come up with. We also want to meet your expectations on the investment. So we set a realistic investment range budget that you feel comfortable with, and when you are convinced that we're the right team for you, then we sign a design agreement. And that design agreement is there to help us explore the right solutions for you. And those will surface. We create a 3D model of your house, kitchen, bathroom, whatever it may be, room addition. And we start the process of playing that puzzle. Based on your needs hierarchy, here's what you said, this is how it could look like. And we start the process. Here is Sharon. She was a little younger there. and then the funnel. So it's about exploration. The funnel will take you from here to all the way to what's the paint color. The little minute decision, what does the door handle look like? So that you have an absolute cohesive design theme going through. And a lot of times, a huge weight off the shoulders for you is that when you have a trained design professional who helps you make the decision and feel good about it. And here's why, and here's the pro and con discussion that you had with Sharon to arrive at that. Really important. Okay, looking at it a little differently. Here's why I want you to know there's several different design build processes out there. We all do things a little bit differently. I want to point to the top right here. This is the standard builder remodeler, what we call maybe a little old school model. And then we have, this is what we found is really helpful in making sure that we end up with good outcomes. I want to point at two things. Look at where real cost gets established in the old school model, and look at where the contract gets signed. So you sign a contract without a full understanding of what is it going to look like and what's the cost. Now, that might be, if you're comfortable with that, that's all great. But what we've found is that this leg of the process, these three things here, absolutely critical to give you the peace of mind that when you sign a contract, the real cost has been established. All the selections have been made. I'll give you an example. In this model, we talk, there's a free bid, there's a contract, we start building. Now, when Sharon would be picking out the materials over here, and then that's her, she's pulling, that's a homeowner pulling her hair out. And that means that there's now been a selection made, and the builder thought, well, I had an allowance for this faucet at this price, and you're saying, no, I told you I wanted to have this is what I wanted it to look like. And that's $748 extra. The allowances, if you understand them and you understand product really well and you're really into the industry, are great guides. But if you're not and you don't know what to expect, it can be a huge disappointment. That's why in our process, we all start with incomplete plans, specs, ideas, and thoughts. We've brainstormed. Then we go through the design process, and then we document. We document all the decisions. So we have a build plan, all the build details, the space plan, in terms of how it's going to look, and there's elevation, there's a 3D perspective. You see exactly how it's going to work. That's very valuable. And then all the selections are picked out, and that's how we arrive at the real cost. So real cost happens here, and then we ask you to sign a contract. Very different. We call it informed decisions. We want you to know everything that's going to happen before we get into it. And when we say no surprises, does anybody believe here that in building there are never any surprises? What we try to do is take care of mitigate them to the best of our ability with the things we know we can do. But short of X-ray vision, short of digging into your wall cavities, short of doing these things, there are things in our world that happens. But that's when you want somebody there who's going to be able to fix it, not just gloss over it. So we discover things sometimes. This is not a doom and gloom, but the way we built in the 40s, 50s, in the turn of the century is different than how we do it today. And sometimes we've had do-it-yourselfers there along the way. Somebody who thought they were an electrician. And we have live wires. We have one of the projects up in Minneapolis right now, live wires in the wall. Not good. That's what can happen. Okay, we're going to take, we ran through this a little bit. We're going to go through, I want you to know this. If you are considering cost, you want to understand value, you can go to costvsvalue.com. So that is made. It's a Hanley Wood Publishing together with the Realtors Association and Home Tech Estimating that gets regional pricing for different project types. If you're interested, you can go check that out. That can be a good guide. It's not the end-all be-all, but you'll get a good understanding of how that works. This slide is really easy to read. So, phasing, we talked about that. I'm going to take 1 minute on phasing. Think about your house. If you've made a commitment that this is your forever house, you want to stay there. I want you to think strategically about what you need the house to do for you over time. You may have a ton of ideas. And what I'm urging you not to do, some people are very impatient. Say, I want to change the countertops, I want to paint this, I want to do that. Please do yourself a favor and have a step back and consider a master plan for the house. That means, what do I need this property to do for me over time? What are my wishes? And have a conversation with somebody about what's the best cadence. Here's why. The house is a system. Everything ties together. So when Sharon and I are kind of going through things, we have to understand how plumbing, electrical, HVAC, window openings, how all of that ties together. And you don't want to be doing a floor somewhere where you're going to be moving a wall. You don't want to be doing the ceilings when you're doing that. You see what I'm saying? So you have to think about it. Otherwise, you run the risk of undoing and redoing things. And then, let's get to tips for living through remodel projects. Oh my gosh. It's really simple. What it is, it's about setting the proper expectations, preparing the site, protecting the site, and coming up with a game plan of how we're going to coexist. We are moving in with you. Chad, Ross, Ed, Sharon, Bjorn, and our team. We have to coexist. And what's important is that you know exactly how things will happen. What's going to be impacted, when, our communication, the checklist that we use to make sure that you understand when water's going to be shut off. Understand how we get to our work areas, how we protect the floors, the walls, all the things you need to help you set up a secondary kitchen. So a little toaster oven, microwave, little fridge, and then you're going to prepare to eat out a little bit more than you normally do. That's just what happens. It's all about communication and setting expectations. We have time for one case study, and then we're going to be at our time here. This is a 90s property in Edina. It's a 2-story. This would fall on the spectrum of a fairly significant remodel. The entire main floor was touched. This is a very typical 2-story, by the way. So you walk in the front, you have a two-story open foyer, you have the stairway, you have a front living room that in these floor plans very often is completely underutilized. I mean, that's what we see. A dining, formal dining to the back, where they go in twice a year, or once, and then they have the kitchen. So you see here's a center island, there's a dinette, L-configured kitchen. Yeah, it's almost there. These homeowners, there's 7 of them, okay? And still 2 kids living in the house and 3. This is one way of aging in place. Homeowners are my age. Kids are leaving. Some of them are maybe coming back. They wanted to create a house where everybody could come and congregate. They did not want to go to a smaller condo. They wanted to have their kids' childhood home performed the way they needed to have it performed while they were kids. And now, so what happened? If you see there, we created a fairly large kitchen, right? We took over the dining. You see 2 islands. Isn't it wonderful? There's a party island and there's a work island. And then we moved the dining room to the front of the house. And that living room that was there is now really all connected with this space right here. And this, you can entertain 5 kids, kids, and they had, I want to say, this,
Future grandkids.
yeah, future grandkids, and they
They
had,
were looking for.
and 50 people they were entertaining for Christmas. Pretty amazing. So let's go through and see what it looked like just in befores and after, because we got one more minute here. Anybody like soffits here? Yeah. A lot of times people don't like soffits. Those are massive soffits. Massive soffits. Then here's our honey oak finish. We did so much of it in the 90s. That's our homeowner, Nancy. She's lovely. And that's what that looked like. This after picture's coming a little bit from a different side. Look at the floor. It's a hickory, hand-scraped, diagonally laid floor system. Looks awesome. 2 different islands, 2 different functions. And even here, you see we've delineated the function so you can work here, and this is a set out the hors d'oeuvres, sit around, eat breakfast, lunch, connected to the dining room. Floors, walls, ceilings, everything touched. And strong connection still to the hearth room in the front of the house. Here's a before shot, you looking in towards their dining and in through their dining. Now the dining room became the party island. And that's where you can watch the game and you can still be part of it. You see how much lighting was added? Recessed cans, right? And there you see also the trim was changed to a little bit more robust. So the ceilings are so high there. In terms of scale, we could go with a little taller base trim. Scale has been restored to a good proportion. This is one of our favorites. So the homeowner had lived in this house for over 20 years. And she had bought the house from a model, and then they showed up. They were not living in this area, came back, and they saw this built. And for 20 years, she has been wanting to change that. There's that little goofy soffit that sits over that little. You got to ask yourself, why sometimes? That's what it looks like now. Very different. And then some of you may think, oh, they got bright brass. No, this is like a champagne soft gold, Sharon, isn't it? Pretty popular today, but it's not bright brass. So if any of you thinks that bright brass is coming back, I think we got some news for you. I don't think so. Right?
No.
Here's a before shot. Here's one thing that I want you to look at. So think about high impact, lower cost. This fireplace detail with this very traditional mantle and brick, what do you do with that? What can you do without tearing everything out? You can do something like this. You could paint it too. But here, what we did is we designed a wood surround around it and a more linear box mantle. Thank you. Okay, a few afters. This is also, some of you have the Spaces magazine. This laundry room was the cover of Spaces magazine. This is the same project. And we have a 7-page spread in there, so take a look. Hear what they said. We took and repurposed these cabinets from the kitchen into the laundry. So think about that in terms of smart, how can we do things to, rather than throw away. And this is another favorite of ours. So Sharon and I always get into the discussions on what happens to, like, you walk in, you have a huge railing, there's a lot of wood, and do you have to start over? Do you have to, like, rip it all out? Pay really close attention to this. The only thing that we took out and replaced is this colonial spindle right here. And there's a dark metal spindle with a sleeve at the bottom here. This is the same wood, right? It's been enameled. The tread is the same. That's been given a gel stain finish, brought it darker. We changed the carpet. Looks like $1 million. Complete transformation without tearing everything out. Just being smart about how we refinish. I'm going to take 1 minute and we're going to talk about 1950s. Do we have to open concept? I want to show you this because this speaks to it. This is a 50s Edina home. And one way of not making it open concept, I want you to pay attention to this wall here. This is the stairway wall. This is where the dinette used to be, little tiny kitchen, not much space, and it had a pathway, thoroughway, from the garage. We eliminated that garage entry because there's already was one on the top there. And this stairway we have opened, so you now have visual. So even though it's not an open concept, you still feel like a very generous look. I'll show it to you. That was the before. Look at that. A moderate way to connect two spaces, create sight lines, allow natural light to flow front to back of house, and you're not into massive wall removal. Moderate ways of doing that. Here's another view. Very pleasing, and it feels like this home just grew, doubled in square footage, but it didn't.
What about
Yes.
the sound coming up from the basement?
There's no sound. So to your point, yes, if you're thinking, let's say this was a house where the husband is a drummer in a band, you don't want that. You'd want a door. This does not have that. But this, how they live, every decision is based on how they want to use it and all of that. This was a far superior solution for them, the way they wanted to live there. 1960s split tuck-unders. Sometimes you can keep the dividing wall between the front of the house and the back of the house and only remove the one wall that sits between the dining and the kitchen. So you create privacy to the back of the house. We do that quite a bit. There's also different ways of doing that where all of the walls are removed and you create just a really open floor system. But some people, when they come in, they want that privacy to the back where the dining and the kitchen is. But now you've removed the wall between the kitchen and dining, so those spaces are together. Things to think about. Here's another view. There you see that butcher block countertop. Two contrasting. A lot of the things too is you see different color of upper and different color of base cabinets. 1980s update. Deanne. 1980s. Is that still? Is that Golden Oak era? Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with oak. Great wood. We just did so much of it that we are somewhat fatigued by golden oak. If you're not opposed to the graining, but you want to either go a darker or you want to go a enamel, white enamel. Those are the options you have without tearing the actual oak out and make it look very different. You saw the stairway there where gel coat went darker, and the contrast of the dark and the white. You can do that in a 1980s house, and that is the floors, the walls, and the millwork and the trim. If you touch those things, it's going to look like a completely new house. Absolutely. Those are quick things to do. Anything else? Anything we missed? Was this helpful? Are you guys walking away really inspired?
Yes.
Okay. If anybody's interested in a good brainstorming session, please make sure that we do have your contact info. That is what we do. It's a complimentary way to learn about what's possible, and then we'll take it from there. So thanks for having us. Thank you.
Very good. This is very good.
Thank you.